Hello, my name is Erica Diaz. I'm in Sociology 101, and my research assignment is on media involvement in human sexuality. And basically, I started off my research paper talking about our first labeling that occurs when we're born, and that is of our gender roles being either female or male. And pretty much, I discussed how we as a society for many years have had an expectation of what these gender roles should act like. And over the years, we've kind of developed a uniqueness to what we think is more acceptable now in age. But before, it was that, boys, that they are not supposed to have girly emotions, such as they shouldn't cry, that's only a girl emotion, and they should be strong, as whereas females are expected to be a little more prim and proper and follow directions. So as kids are in a very vulnerable age, I would say, because they are pretty much learning during their childhood and trying to absorb any type of information they acquire within their community or surroundings. And they're pretty much like sponges absorbing anything. So, on one of my research, I chose to write something that registered nurse Kyla Boise put out in August 2010. And she stated that children ages 2 to 5 watch an approximated 32 hours per week in front of the TV. So, pretty much, I wrote about if they're spending this kind of time on TV, what are they being exposed to? And I questioned whether, the media was the leading sex educator amongst children, and also if they're being exposed to this, what type of influence is it having on their minds and on their choices to be more sexual. So, on my first paragraph, I pointed out that we're all exposed to sexual content within the media at one point of our life. Our society is based on a for-profit industry and sex sells. So they try to implement it wherever they can, so that people, more consumers will intake the information. So we see it in anything from, like, a TV ad to a magazine ad to them selling something in an infomercial. If it's sexy, it'll probably sell more than likely. So the media has become very broad over the last few years, ranging from like television to social media to the internet to magazines. And registered nurse Kyla Boise also wrote that the number of sex scenes on TV since 1998 has doubled, with 70% of top 20 shows that are usually watched by teenagers having sexual images. 15% of the images depict casual sex, so it's kind of promoting promiscuity in a way. And we're questioning, so if the average 2 to 5 year old child spends 32 hours a week, wouldn't that mean that they're being exposed to this sexual content a majority of this time? So unfortunately, the TV media is not the only type of media where kids are being exposed to these types of sexual images. The music industry has been a big portrayer of sexual image or sexual images or sexual media. They have developed sex icons being these celebrities and sexualize them in order to make profit. And more and more children take to them as role models, so they're wanting to act like them. So in the research by Leslie Ann A, she did a four faced research study in 2016, which pretty much investigated the prevalence of sexualized music in Australia. And she found that pop music had 68% sexualized images, R&B had 88%, hip hop had 82%, and dance had 75%. So if this is the intro to our sexuality, what are realistic expectations if children are only seeing what is in the media, and are they capable of understanding that it is not reality? So I put out an example of my first experience. I know that MTV was huge for me when I was a 90s kid, and my first experience was an over sexualized music video, and that I did not understand, but all I grasped was, hey, it has a catchy tune, and basically, it looked like a lot of fun and made me want to be one of the girls hanging out at the beach and having a good time. But I didn't really understand. And that was at a really, really young age of like 5 years old, I want to say. So for my second paragraph, I basically wrote that children are very impressionable and they pick up on social cues, and they're basically at a age where they're learning about themselves and how to act, and they're pretty much building that character. And it's basically a learned behavior that they acquire from their community or from their parents, and the types of relations around them. And I stated that, everyone has a really complex mind, and not just one person thinks the same. So all these types of answers that we're trying to get are being some type of correlation between studies and behavior in order to pretty much relate it back to past experiences, because not everyone has had the same experience. We can only compare. So Leslie Ann A stated that the children were more drawn to skinnier sex symbols, images of celebrities, and anyone that did not look overly sexualized was put in an underneath category. So kids were pretty much putting on a pedestal the celebrities that were overly sexualized. And she also stated that the research conducted by Starr and Ferguson found that American girls between the ages of 6 and 9 years old, they showed a preference for sexy clothing and anticipated social advantages generated from looking sexy. And then the preferences and views were taught to be associated with young girls learning to value sexiness through agents such as the media. So the sexualized images are basically telling our children what gender role is appropriate for them, and what their gender role should act like. And children are beginning to conform to these types of behaviors because they are learning it from the media and being told that this is how they should act. So Leslie Ann A also stated, if children measure worth on appearance, they are likely to develop psychological problems such as self-esteem, eating disorders, or body dissatisfaction. So when children don't fit in to the mold, they get discouraged, and then they feel unworthy and like social outcasts. So children that are being exposed to over sexualization might feel enticed to commit acts that are beyond their age, because it's making them question certain things about themselves. So something that's concerning is that females are becoming over sexualized and treated as sex objects. And then this is creating a message to women that women are only our only role is to attract men and to please them. And men are getting a higher placement and a superior role, and they're only valuing women for what they can do. So I wrote down that some researchers concluded that those exposed to objectifying portrayals are more tolerant of or in agreement with sexual harassment, adversarial adversarial sexual beliefs, rape myths, child sex abuse myths, and interpersonal violence than participants with exposure and greater body dissatisfaction, appearance, anxiety, and disorder eating beliefs. Stamen made a connection. Leslie Ann A. stated that sex in the media equals low self esteem. So basically, the media is not allowing people to become free thinkers. And in 2009, a researcher named Calzo LP stated it should be noted that sex differences um, found in this study, with men being less likely to receive LGBT positive message than women, may add to our understanding of why men, regardless of race, keep their sexual preferences to themselves. These results are likely to relate to socialization of traditional masculine ideology, wherein anti femininity and homophobia are strong components. So, our culture is barely embracing the LGBTQ community, and there is more homosexuality and non binary couples being shown in the media. But, for a long time, homosexual people were pretty much keeping their sexuality in the closet, you would say, because our gender role in the media as well has always been that, we have a male female relationship, and that's the only relationship that is tolerable. And it's teaching children that, that is the only thing that's okay. So is it really teaching our children and giving them freedom to pick how their gender should behave and what their sexualized preferences should be? So I also said, the media is a vast source of wide information. The children can have any type of information they want. So Strasburger did a survey in 2004 that showed that 530 parents found that nearly half of parents of middle schoolers and 1/4 of high school parents never had discussed birth control with their children. And in the same survey, 275 schools were asked if they had any type of sexual education, and 10% of the schools stated that they had no sexual education. 58% of them made no effort to talk about sex, and 68% of the schools did not include parents in the sexual education program. So out of these, 90% of the schools provided sex ed, and but 30% of them were abstinence only. 47% was abstinence positive, which means abstinence and birth control, and then 20% were comprehensive. So RAND researchers also stated that sexual socialization is part of adolescent development, and emergence of sexual interest and activity is normative during this period, but sex can involve significant risks. No negative outcomes are more likely with sexual debut. High rates of teenage pregnancy and sexual transmitted infections suggest that many children initiate intercourse before they're ready. So in conclusion, sexual education should be taught at home and in school, because children spend so much time at school and also at home. And if the media keeps sexualizing images, you can't blame or shame kids for wanting to explore more about their sexuality. And the only way for children to make the right choices are if the parents step up and teach their children about birth control, and the school also offers some kind of sexual education, and this in the long run will prevent more teenage pregnancies, and will also, keep children informed of uh, anything that they need to learn about sex. Thank you.